Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. It always takes me by surprise that I can see the little whirligig going and then all of a sudden you're live. Here I am live. Anyway, I have just dashed up from eating dinner. Becca was cooking tonight. She's just made the most amazing butternut squash, spinach and chickpea curry, which was awesome. But I literally finished it 5 minutes before coming onto here. So, hey, that's life, isn't it? It just took her a bit longer than it usually does. Anyway, I'll give it a couple of secs for people to drop on if they're dropping on, and if they're not, that's also fine. I'll just continue to talk. I don't know about you today, but I have been a busy bee, really busy, doing a lot of things today. Interesting when you are that busy and you get that engrossed with things, but how it opens your thinking up. I love when you get into something and you start to dive deep, how your thinking really expands. Well, mine does anyway. Obviously, I'm talking from a creative perspective and thinking a bit differently to others sometimes, but that's fine. Anyway, for those of you that don't know me, I'm going to do the usual. I am Mandy Nicholson, tonight with curly hair. And I am a creative genius consultant, artist, and author, and I help creative female entrepreneurs to launch, grow, and scale their creative business and make more money. I work with all of you artists and all of you creative ladies who need to find out how to become an entrepreneur. And that's my job. I love it. Dream job. And tonight I'm going to share week 4 of this last month's series where I've been talking about my book and the story behind my book. Some of you have heard some of this before, but perhaps not like it's been told in the past or like I've discussed it with you in the past. Because I think one thing for sure is that each time we tell a story and we talk about something, it depends on how we're feeling at the time, what else is going on in our life, how we communicate it, how much of it we communicate, how we shape and form it in the words that we use that particular time that we're talking about it. So it doesn't matter if you've heard it before. It doesn't matter if you've had the same training a million times. Put a new person delivering the same training, it changes everything, doesn't it? So I never stop telling the same things and doing the same training because it's really important that people hear the story in whatever way you're telling it today. Anyway, my post this morning was that I'm going to be talking tonight about poor me syndrome. And believe it or not, poor me syndrome is an actual thing. It was part of one of my coaching qualifications. There was a full section dedicated to poor me syndrome. It's actually a condition. So what I'm going to say is that my previous, not my late husband, he was wonderful. My previous husband, the one that is the subject in the book, one whose character I made into the subject in the book, had poor me syndrome in a big way. And poor me syndrome exists in people that blame everything other than themselves on things not being right. So they'll blame the government, they'll blame politicians, they'll blame the school system, they'll blame anybody that they can think of to blame for things not being right in their life other than themselves. And I'm sure you know some people with poor me syndrome. They're popping into your head right now as I say those words. You know these people that have poor me syndrome. I have wonderful friends who, when I meet them, do nothing but complain about their jobs, but they don't do anything to change it. And I have family members who do nothing but complain about their partners, but they don't do anything to change it. And what I did today was say, you know what? There's no room for poor me syndrome here. There's no room for poor me syndrome in my life. I no longer tolerate this. I don't want to hear it. If you don't want to make changes, stop blaming other people because do you know what? It's your fault. Now, bear in mind, guys, I can't see your comments if you're on one or two of the platforms that I'm live on tonight. So I will come back to you If you're watching live, hashtag live. If you're watching on replay, hashtag replay. Tell me where you're watching from. Ask me questions. Make comments. Do whatever you like. I will come back at the end when I've finished doing this session. So think about poor me syndrome and think about the people you know. It's something that you do need to think about, because the people around you that have poor me syndrome, that behave in that way, don't know any different, and they don't know that they can be impacting on your positivity. I stayed with my first husband, my husband that was in here. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much, depending on who's watching. I stayed with him for 13 years and listened to the incessant poor me syndrome. Because why did I do that? This was one of my lessons that I had coming out of this series of unfortunate events. One of the things I lost was my marriage. And of all the things I lost 11 years ago, it was the one thing that I was the happiest about. Because honestly, I felt trapped. We had a couple of kids, we had a life. I was the main breadwinner. I was at work all the time. I had this really highly paid job. I was in this hamster wheel where I was trapped. And many of you may feel like that in your job. I don't even know what this year's done to you, but it may feel like that sometimes in your job. It may feel like that sometimes in your relationships. It may feel like that in your life, that you just keep going, hoping for it to be different, but not taking any action to make it different. Now, I hoped that he would change one day for so many years, because I could not be bothered or did not have the energy to make the changes that were necessary, because the changes that were necessary to my life were so big. Because in order to blow it all up, I would have to leave him, take the kids away from the dad, be the bad one, work out how to bring my kids up whilst still being in this really highly paid senior corporate position I was in. And all that felt like too difficult while I was on the hamster wheel of life. It feels too difficult. Sometimes we stay in a certain situation for so long because it feels harder to change it than it does, the feedback and the backlash and the criticism and the things that will happen if we make all the what seem to be bad decisions, but they're actually not. They're good decisions, but we perceive them to be bad. We're going to hurt people. Our children will be hurt. Our families will be hurt. This is what people will say about me. These are all the things. This is the mind chatter that goes on. And yet, I did this. I was in this situation. I lived with this man for 13 years who had poor me syndrome, who complained about everything, who complained about immigrants coming into the country and taking our jobs. That was him. He was that man. He was a bully. I didn't know this at the start because they pretend to be something different initially. But he was very nice at the start. And then all this other stuff comes out. The racism that I couldn't tolerate, that I hated. And I went to work and spent 90 hours a week there to get away from him. Unfortunately, it took me away from my kids as well. So I was in this hamster wheel of life. And then all of a sudden, it exploded anyway. And I genuinely believe that it exploded anyway because I just could not tolerate what I was living in and putting up with any longer. So I've talked about it as my series of unfortunate events when I wrote this book, The Life I Won. But I'm going to change that up tonight and say, even though I lost my dad, I lost all my money, I lost my marriage, I lost my house, I lost lots of things, I was bankrupt, everything. It was the biggest gift ever served to me in life. The one thing that saddens me in amongst it all was that I lost my dad in amongst it. But actually taking everything away from me took me out of this mindset of that I could not get off this hamster wheel. And sometimes we just stay on it too long. So that was 11 years ago. I'll tell you what I've never done. I've never done that again. And this is the difference that something massive like that, your life exploding, can make to you in terms of your decision making and the lessons that you learn and what you do going forward in the future. And that's why I talk about it, because I know Somebody listening right now will resonate with what I'm saying about living with someone with poor me syndrome, or being surrounded with people who complain all the time, or these people that drag your energy down. We all try very hard to not be in that situation. I don't anymore. I am very much less tolerant. But it took that big lesson. So 11 years ago, I lost everything. But I didn't. I gained so much. And that's what pushed me into the decision to write this book, so that I could help other people to realize that you have the power and you are in control. And the only reason that's stopping you from making the decision right now to do something dramatic with your life is that you feel that you are on this hamster wheel of life where you can't make change because you will hurt people, or you'll be criticized, or people will say this. And honestly, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. That's probably what I want to say to you tonight. I want to give you the confidence that whatever it is that you're feeling right now that you can't do, you absolutely can. Because it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. Have you ever been really nervous about going to a meeting? Really, really nervous, or something new? And you've worried about it for days, and you've not slept the night before, and you've got there, and actually it goes like a dream, and it's never, ever as bad as you think it's going to be. That's everything in life. It's never as bad. Some things are difficult at first, and they take a bit of pushing through. But the end result, the long term, the big picture is much better, because you are happier and you feel completely differently when you're released from these people that drag you down, or their attitudes that don't align with yours, or a job that makes you feel completely worthless because you are not valued by your employer. Even now, even where we're at right now. So I help creative women. Some of my creative clients are struggling in the current climate because they're building a business, and it's a tough time to be building a business in. And everybody, when things are tough, people want to change things. And what I keep saying to them, and I'm going to say the same to you, is keep doing what you do. Your area of genius, keep doing it again and again. Keep telling the story again and again. Keep sharing the knowledge again and again. Giving people the confidence that you're prepared to show up and do the same thing again and again and again. Because it works. The basics work. Tell your story. Tell it again and again until everybody in the world has heard it. Till you've reached the people, the volume of people. If you told your story for the next 20 years every single day, still not everybody on the planet would hear it. So if you shared that bit of valuable knowledge that you know that helps others every single day for 20 years, you still wouldn't reach everybody on the planet. So keep doing what you're doing that you know works for you in your business. And if you don't know what that is yet, find out. And that's about knowing who you're talking to and how you can help them. So what I'm going to do for you tonight is I'm going to read out chapter 4 of my book. So I've been reading chapters 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to read chapter 4 based on the fact I've just talked to you about being with this man that had poor me syndrome and spending 13 years with him. And right at the beginning of this book, in the first few chapters, I'm dealing with this. What am I doing with this person? So I'm going to read to you chapter 4, which is called Thought. And if you've been with me in the last few weeks, you'll have heard the previous chapters where I've been introducing what happened. So chapter 4, Thought. As the days passed, more practical tasks set in. Mandy had spoken to her employers, and they had been hugely supportive and told her to concentrate on getting well. Her mum had been to visit, and it had been so nice to see her, but she couldn't bring herself to tell anybody about what happened because she feared that they would think she'd lost her mind. Not even her mum, who she'd always discussed everything with. Had she lost her mind? Did she imagine what had happened? Was it just a dream, or was it real? The feeling of warmth and love seeped over her, and she knew that it was true. Because if there had been anybody she would have chosen to meet her, it would have been Grandad Whiskers. Replaying every second of the event in her mind, she held on to the memory and yearned to see him again, even just for a second, to touch him, to talk to him. She had wasted the time they had. Why did she not talk to him more? Her sister Angel broke her thoughts when she arrived in her usual loud and animated style. She looked a bit distracted and not her usual self, but Mandy put that down to concern. Angel was her little sister and had spent her life trying to follow in her big sister's footsteps and failing. Mandy had helped Angel to achieve her dream of running a pub by buying her the lease to the Farmer's Arms and acted as a silent partner, pretty much letting her get on with it. Maybe there were some issues with the business. She made a note to pop in and support her sister when it was physically possible for her to do so. Becca and Dan came regularly with their dad, and they were a complete joy every time they came. She treasured this opportunity to remain a part of their lives and would never be anything other than grateful. They were perfect little beings, and she was so proud. It suddenly occurred to her just how lucky she was to have them at all. This thinking time in the hospital was giving her the opportunity to take stock. Having almost lost her life once before with a ruptured ectopic pregnancy, the doctors had told her that she only had a slim chance of falling pregnant and that they'd needed to remove one of her fallopian tubes. But she defied the odds, and Becca arrived 2 years later. They were happy with one child, but fast forward another 4 years and a happy accident happened and Dan was born in the April, 5 months before her 40th birthday. What a gift. Suddenly, a terrible memory popped into her head. Arguments that occurred between her and John when she fell pregnant with Dan. He did not want any more children and told her that she would have to have an abortion. He was too old to be a dad again and just couldn't be bothered. Horrified, Mandy had refused, even though her husband and his mother had bullied her constantly throughout the pregnancy until the final scan. John could do no wrong in his mother's eyes. She would believe anything he said and side with him every single time. Maybe this was at the bottom of how she had been feeling the day of the accident. Perhaps the rot had set in then. She had thought about this for a long time, and the longer she thought, the more incidents of bullying became clear. She was not a person to be bullied. She was a strong woman with a high-powered job and balls of steel at work. So why had she allowed this man to bully her and not even noticed? She felt overwhelmed with sadness. Had the children been bullied while she was at work for all those hours? Had they noticed the way he was with her? Was this one of her challenges? These thoughts weighed heavily. She felt weak, like she had failed herself and her children by putting up with behavior that she would never tolerate anywhere else in her life. Way too much thinking time. Mandy pulled herself around and decided that if she was going to be off work for a while, she should do something really positive with her time. Something that could keep her mind busy and stop it from wandering off and imagining things. Opening her laptop, she started searching for self-development. After hours of searching, she had decided to sign up for a couple of online courses that would give her some additional qualifications. You can never educate yourself too much. This had been a strong belief during her entire life. After achieving her A-levels, she had gone to university to study art and been successful. But due to a turn of events involving her sister, again, with her mum and dad losing a lot of money on a hair salon that they had bought for her, Mandy had needed to just get a job and help out. Having worked for a wine merchant in the holidays and in a bar 3 evenings a week whilst at uni, she was familiar with the off-licence trade and landed a job as a wines and spirits supervisor in a large-scale supermarket chain. This had been the beginning of her career, and the art was parked for the sake of earning money. Her employer had supported her ongoing education, and she had completed a diploma in management studies, a diploma in leadership coaching whilst working, and was very proud of her achievements. Perhaps this was one of her challenges, making the most of her downtime. While she had time off work, educating herself and gaining new skills. Well, if it was, she was going to do it with knobs on. She signed up for 2 advanced diplomas in NLP and life coaching and a diploma in building self-confidence. Having touched on NLP during her management studies and been intrigued, she saw herself as a coach and a people person, so these courses made sense. She would go back to work in 4 months' time, an even better manager. Challenge accepted. While signing up for the courses, she noticed something in the search results called The Secret. It caught her eye and she checked it out. It sounded totally Americanized, but something struck a chord. She had no idea what, but it was available on DVD. So she ordered it and just thought she would watch it at some point when she was back home. Home. Now there was a welcome thought. So those 4 early chapters of the book kind of set the scene as to where my life was at the time and what I talked to you about earlier about the poor me syndrome and living with somebody who was actually a bully and who wouldn't take responsibility for anything, ever. There is always a way out. There are always things that you can do wherever that is that you feel that you are trapped. And it starts with making the decision. It starts with you, and it starts today, and it starts right now in this second. You can change anything. I genuinely believe this. I do this to myself all the time. I review where I am every single month in my business and in my life. And this is what I help and encourage my clients to do, is to constantly look at where they are and navigate in the best way that they can with their business and with their life, not afraid to face anything head on. And if something isn't working, not afraid to bin it and start something new, but actually not start something new for the sake of it. Because when we take things back to basics, basic sound advice always works in business and in life. So what I find is lacking most of all for creative women, so that's your artists out there and you ladies that do upcycling and crafters, the people that I help and the people that I work with and the people I love working with, is that often there's a gap in knowledge. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know how to be an entrepreneur. You know how to be an absolutely fantastically talented creative. You know how to create amazing things. What you don't know necessarily is how to build up a business strategy and multiple income streams and look at each individual thing that's part of your business as a strategy and assess whether it's going to actually make you money or not. And this is a completely different set of skills that I help you bring to the party. So if things aren't working for you right now, it's not that you don't know, it's that you don't have the knowledge, or it's that you're staying in something that isn't working or isn't making you feel good. So the one thing I want you to do tonight is to look at 3 objectives. I want you to set 3 objectives for your business or your life. Hopefully for your business, if you're watching me. If I was to meet you in a networking event for the first time, and we were talking business, and I said to you, what are your 3 key objectives in your business? Would you be able to answer me just like that? If the answer to that is no, then you need to go and work on your 3 key business objectives. This goes beyond your why. This is the start of anything that you'll do in business. And it's the start of anything you do in life. And 11 years ago, when I ended up with nothing, I asked myself what were my objectives in life. And they were fairly clear to me at that point, having been stripped of everything. To not stay at rock bottom, to be able to feed and clothe my children and keep the standard of living up, and to forge a new career for myself. I had very clear objectives as to where I wanted to go from rock bottom. The only way was up. It was non-negotiable. And guess what? I didn't have anymore. I didn't have anyone around me living in poor me syndrome, saying it was the government, or it was the social security system, or it was this, or it was that was causing the problems in my life. And it was nothing to do with me. It was everything to do with me. I took 100% responsibility for where I was right then and changed it. And if things aren't where you want them right now, forget COVID. It's not COVID. It's not the government. It's not this difficult year we've been in. It's none of those things. If you want something to be different in your life, this might sound harsh, you might hate me for this, but it doesn't matter. The only way you're going to change it is to decide to change it right now, in this second that I'm saying this. As these words come out of my mouth, they're now history. They've gone. You want something to change, you decide to change it right now, and you take the appropriate action. I did not sit in my council house with £30 in my bank account, which is where I was, bankrupt, a single parent, bereft of everything that I'd had before, and go, I'll wait till I get my DSS money, then I'll make a decision. I decided right there and then that I was going to change something in my life. And I told everybody that I was going to change something. And I said, I'm just going to start a cleaning business to get myself up and running again, and then I'll rethink. And because I told everybody, then things started coming to me. So people would then go, Mandy said she's going to do a cleaning business. There's an advert for looking for a cleaner or for holiday cottages. And people would just call me up or email me and say, there's this and there's that. And before long, I had a cleaning business within a few months. And that was really successful for me. Eventually, I had to hire people to work for me. And then, it spiraled from there. And then I changed that after I'd done what I needed to do with that. That got me to maybe stage 1, where I could make the next decision. And this is how you change your life. When I realized that I'd had enough of that, I then changed it again. And it's only in the last 2 years that I've stepped into my creative power. It was a shove from my late husband. Not my ex. He would never be my ex. If he was still alive, he would still be with me. But a shove from my late husband pushed me towards my dream business. And only I can blame myself for not doing that sooner. I can't blame anybody else other than me for not stepping into my dream business sooner than I did. So I don't want you to make the same excuses as I did. I spent decades saying there's no money in the creative space. There is money in the creative space. There's money in the creative space. It's multi-billions of dollars market. You've just got to put your toe in it and make a start. Let me tell you this about the creative space. It's 10% talent and 90% marketing. And I help creative women with the talent to get that balance right. But I had to do it myself first. So tonight is the night that you decide change is going to happen. Tonight is the night that you decide to break away from whatever it is that is not working for you. And that's why I put a post out about poor me syndrome today, because I will not tolerate poor me syndrome in my life. Everything is my responsibility. Everything that's right, everything that's wrong. I take full credit for everything that's right. I take full responsibility for everything that's wrong, but I don't let it be wrong for very long, because I go and sit and have a look with it at whatever's not working and say, right, okay, how do we change this? How do we make it better? How do we move it forward? I no longer sit on things like I did in that marriage for all those years and in that career that wasn't serving me. I made the decision 11 years ago to change things when I wanted to and when I was ready to, and not let anything stand in my way. And it'll be the same when I'm ready to go to Scotland. I've already set a time scale on that. When I decide to go to Scotland, this house will go up for sale, and I will be off on my jolly way with my knotted hanky, and I'm not waiting for the castle. I will just go and pave the way. And I want that for you. So I want you to say with me tonight, my time is now and I am ready. My time is now and I am ready. And that's the first step, making that decision. So I'm not going to talk for any longer, because that's half an hour. It's really easy for me to talk for an hour. So I'm not going to do that, because you'll all be really bored. And I'm sure you've got better things to do with your life than listen to me for an hour. And I need to go and let that amazing butternut squash curry settle down. I will be here slightly earlier next week. I'll put it out on the day, but it'll be 6:30 next week instead of 7, because I'm going to do a Christmas market at 7. an online Christmas market, not a real one. So I'll see you slightly earlier next week at 6:30, where I will be hopefully having 2 special guests, but I'll let you know about that as we get closer to the time. Have an amazing night, an amazing week, and I will see you same place, same time-ish, earlier next week. Bye for tonight. Bye.